Hi, I'm Ellie and welcome. Today I'll be chatting with Elise, who is the content creator behind Earth or Nothing. She is such a lovely content creator, creating a very intentional YouTube space around soul fashion, environmentalism. And if you're new here, welcome to Susty Talks. It is a community-centered podcast that sparks genuine conversations around ethical fashion, sustainable change, and intersectional solutions. Honestly, it's just being a space to drive positive change and empower action, making sustainability more accessible and relevant to everyone. And it is a self-funded initiative. You can support me by rehoming vintage clothing through my Depop description down below. So without further ado, let's talk to Elise. Yay! I'm so excited. Okay, all right, Elise. I cannot wait to hear about your sustainability journey, what led you to start Earth or Nothing, and how you use your platform to inspire mindful consumption, slow fashion, and climate consciousness. I'm, again, truly honored that you're here. And thank you again for joining me on Susty Talks. So, to start off, could you introduce yourself and tell our listeners what you want them to know about you?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's my first podcast ever, or like talking to someone kind of in the
Yay.
content creation sphere. So I really
I'm
appreciate what you're
honored.
doing here. Yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, that's that. So here we go. Where do when you get overwhelmed, someone's like, what's your story? And you have so many thoughts like flooding your mind. But I guess in terms of content creation, we'll start there. I used to have an old YouTube channel and it was doing really well. And that was pretty much focused on what your typical like influencer would be doing. I had a moment when I moved to New York and went to an internship abroad and fully had a realization like I needed to delete this. Like the Paris Climate Accord was in 2016. I deleted my channel 2017, started a new one 2017, all focused on sustainability and kind of minimizing your impact on Earth. It was maybe initially focused on like zero waste, which is imperfect. And I quickly came to realize that. But with that, kind of diving into the deep end was also learning about reusing, reducing, and then lastly, of course, recycling and kind of figuring out that recycling is at the bottom of what you should be doing. You should be reducing your consumption, and that kind of top tier led me into everything else that I was doing. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
my
a
dog, by the way.
oh,
My boyfriend's dog just like made this huge
so
grumble. But
cute, so cute. No, I love to hear
yeah,
your journey, to hear that you had to pivot after seeing what was happening and reflecting and thinking, I have to do something else.
mhm.
So can you share a bit more context about Earth or Nothing, where the name came from for your new YouTube channel and how that has been?
Yeah, so I took inspiration from the Nerf gun, Nerf or Nothing. I thought that was cute. Like I was playing with Earth and I was like, how can I incorporate this in a fun way? And that might be recognizable for some people, but the true basis of Earth or Nothing is like we truly do not have another home other than Earth. So we need to treat it with respect and steward the land and act like we live here and act like we care of it. It's catchy, it's short, it's quippy, and it's recognizable. And yeah, that also came from a little bit of like marketing background that I had when I attended FIT. It's a fashion institute and technology in New York. I was doing marketing. I saw that the world was burning, and I also was like, okay, I really need to pivot. And then again, switched careers or like education paths into earth and environmental science. So really like took it in a personal way, but then also in a sense like educationally and professionally, and really decided to go all in on making sustainability my entire being essentially.
I definitely resonate with going on a journey and seeing what I can do, even if it's a YouTube video, even if it's just being more aware of what's happening. I think all those steps can lead to a better future, even if it feels a bit small. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder how your sustainability journey has been. Where did you really think it grew? I know you touched on it a bit, but can you expand a bit on your sustainability journey?
For sure. I have always like grown up in nature. I'm from Louisiana, and like South Louisiana to be specific, and it's very swamp heavy, but it's also full of natural beauty. And Katrina hit, and that really was traumatic for a lot of people. I was displaced for about a month and was young. You know, I was in first grade. I didn't fully understand that this was once in 100 year kind of storm. And then being impacted by that directly, and then also the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, terrifying, awful. Like the economy, local economy still hasn't recovered, and seeing how things that humans are doing are destroying themselves. Like it's masochistic in a sense where
Mhm.
we understand that this is really bad and we're still continuing to do it. And then I thought, well, maybe we don't understand that it's bad. And I got really curious about why do these things happen, and we kind of know the cause, but we don't think the cause is the issue. We think these things just come out of nowhere. So um, I've always been into like storytelling and being really curious. I'm definitely an English girl. I hate math, but I love science. So during my school years growing up, you know, being a part of the Earth Club, where all we did was like pick up recycling, but, you know, carrying that with me through my education and being really curious and trying to connect a lot of different points, because sustainability is not just about the environment and just about the earth, um, kind of led me to where I am today about telling these stories on the internet and kind of connecting the dots in a way that people kind of know, but they're not really digging into and getting to the root cause of the beginning of the climate crisis, the beginning of the waste crisis, the beginning of colonization, industrialization. And I like to take people back and kind of walk them through it in a way that's digestible, because we can get lost in a lot of statistics and data and jargon, and approachable, I think, is the big thing. So, kind of through my experience of doing a little bit of everything and putting it together and being able to present it to people.
I love that. I've always was an English girly too. Oh my gosh, is he a puppy or how old is he?
Yeah, she's Arya, how old are you? I think she's 6 years old. That's my
6 years
boyfriend's dog, so
old. Oh,
she's
so
gonna hang out with
cute.
us.
So cute. No, I totally resonate with being an English girly. I've never been into maths either. And I grew up reading
Yeah.
books. I was always outside, either in my backyard or in my front porch. And that was like core memories, just like seeing the
Hmm.
trees sway and like seeing the rain fall around me if I was on the porch and just like immersing myself in all these different lives that I personally couldn't really live, but just seeing other perspectives on a page really did help me
Hmm.
get a new perspective. Um, and it's great that you've taken those skills, those like interests, and have applied them to where you think can work to reach people and like personify basically the struggle or the information, not just make it so abstract or like
Hmm.
incredibly like fact-based, more so like here's my story, here's my take. Hopefully you care, hopefully you learn something, hopefully you can continue this journey with me. I think that's honestly really beautiful. Like I say, like I think everyone can play a part in the climate crisis. Things can often
Hmm.
feel incredibly dark, incredibly overwhelming. We don't know what to do sometimes. And then we
Hmm.
turn on the news and we're like, oh my God, the world is on fire. Like is my one little thing enough? Like, is this really going to make a difference? But the belief that we're all part of a
Yeah.
collective, all wanting a better future is, I think, what makes me hopeful personally, to move
Hmm.
forward in my content creation. Like this podcast, I don't really know who's listening. I don't know if anyone really cares, but at least I was able to talk to you and continue the good fight, and to learn from each other. I think that's the most beautiful thing we can ever do, and especially on a Sunday. I don't think we've mentioned that
Yeah.
we're here on Sunday on Easter, really grappling with the important parts of our life and how to move forward. So, yeah, I'm super, super just
Hmm.
touched by how you've taken those pieces and have really, really shaped your life around it. So, I'm kind of curious, where did you grow more into slow fashion around, mindful consumption? I know you talk about that a lot.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the crux of my channel, because people are constantly looking for fashion inspiration. And if I can
Mm.
be that one voice that's like, here's my take, but it's thrifted, it's secondhand, it's from a swap, I'm borrowing it. I think that can really spark people's interest in a different way to kind of go into thrifting and secondhand and then further that and into sustainability. So honestly, it started for me maybe a little bit out of need when I moved to New York City. I was 18 years old and struggling, honestly. I didn't have a job for like the first couple of months and eating into my savings. And when you're in New York, there's everyone's hustling, everyone's grinding, but they also look extremely chic and fabulous. And there's some kind of aspirational air that they have. And I've always been into fashion. That was what like my previous channel is based on. But then I'm at this point where I have no money, but I do want to still express myself. And I think thrifting was a number one way for me to do that. And then also reducing my plastic consumption. Like those were two very top of mind things for me. And that's kind of like what led me into wanting other people to be curious about like you can be sustainable or reduce your consumption and it doesn't cost a thing or it's very little. So that was kind of like my slow fashion journey and then growing that out into meaning more than just thrifted, but what does sustainable fashion mean? And there's like three pillars in my mind. It's the environmental impact, the community and labor impact, and then also like animal cruelty. Well, I'll tie that into environmental, but then like the social
Mm.
kind of governance of it, of like, is this corporation donating to their community that they're directly impacting? Or are they donating product? Are they educating? And that's kind of what I define to be slow fashion and want to share with other people.
Mm. Yeah, that's amazing. I feel like those pillars can really ground you in what's important because, like you were saying earlier, sustainable fashion, sustainability, it's all intersectional. It's all connected together by so many different elements. So when you're talking about how can I consume fashion better, you're also touching on so many different things that you otherwise on the surface may not assume about fashion. And I totally get the thing about New York and how it's beautiful. It's very inspirational. There's so many good aesthetics. But I always like to
Mm-hmm.
ask, so what are the values? Like, what are we actually doing at the end of the day? And can we survive not only financially because of it, but also like mentally, spiritually? Like, how is this in a big picture forming the
Mm-hmm.
collective, the future that we want? And sometimes fashion is just rooted in how we look, the aesthetics, the perception, but does it
Mm-hmm.
hold anything deeper? Probably
Right.
not. And if we explore the truth, let's say of like fast fashion, you see these social issues, these environmental issues. We see the destruction of so many good things that is not being preserved for whatever reason by major
Right.
corporations. So I guess what was your specific turning point of when you realized, no, I no longer want to support fast fashion. I no longer want to support these like social issues, environmental issues, and how do you think climate justice is connected to all those things?
Mm-hmm. It's a really good question because, like, it kind of happened like a big snowball effect. But I think honestly, I think trying to go zero plastic first happened for me with the Pacific garbage patch.
Hmm.
Not shortly behind that was seeing like deserts and secondhand markets just filled like with mountains of clothing. And I thought that was very horrifying. And I also realized like needs versus wants. Do I need this new outfit or do I just want it? And I think that kind of derived also from being in a financially like disenfranchised place and realizing that I don't need anything. I truly, as long as I have food in my belly, a roof over my head, and some form of clothing on my back and like water, I'm good. Um, and really, probably when I first started going to like fashion school at the same time, I was kind of like really turned off by people who were like over the top, kind of showing off in a way. And I thought that that's just not me. That doesn't really align with me. I really wish we could just be more mindful and grateful for like what we already have and own and have created in this world.
Mhm.
But your question about like climate justice is really like that's a tough one and a tricky one because I would probably more define it as like racial justice and
Mm.
how climate justice and racial justice like intertwine because there's a whole history. Gonna take you guys for a ride. Um, in the United States, obviously, this country is founded on the blood of indigenous people and the backs of slavery. And we don't talk about that at all, slash enough in fashion and just in industrialization in general. And um, a lot of people freed from slavery and then become indentured servants were financially disenfranchised by gentrification and redlining, banks literally not loaning people of color into desirable areas, desirable neighborhoods because of their skin color, and then being left in these kind of like below the highway and below the railroad. And that's where the factories are, kind of be polluting the airways, and then cars running through this highway. It's like super congested area, and then factories just dumping their sewage waste like in these red line areas where these people of color live. That to me is climate justice and racial justice intertwined. And again, growing up in Louisiana, there's what's called Cancer Alley. It's where like petrol refineries are on the Mississippi River, and it's mostly people of color that live in these areas because they've been designated to do so by the banks and by policies and Jim Crow, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and then also, if you think about garment workers and this being outsourced outside of the United States, it's mostly people of color that are working in these factories. So it all comes from this white supremacy idea that these white people are the best people that walk this land and everyone else needs to just serve us. And if you take and like dismantle that from an environmental standpoint, like humans are humans. That's the
Yeah.
bottom line is humanity. Like we all share the same like internal organs. We share the same spinal system. We share the same nervous system. We share all the same organs. Like I don't understand the racist kind of implications of the climate crisis as well. Oh, I understand them, but I don't think that they
Mhm.
should be that way. So it's very deeply intertwined. And I think that's the stickiest part of dismantling. Here's the thing. I'm like getting
Mhm.
lost in my words and making word salad,
No,
but
you're making so much sense. I truly respect what you're saying, where you see everyone as worthy of having a good, dignified life, where they're not subjected to oppression or exploitation for the color of their skin. And it sounds like you
mm-hmm,
don't agree of what's happening. You don't agree that the most vulnerable are living next to these horrible conditions, these things that are basically harming their health, and
mm-hmm,
it's not really contributing to a prosperous or happy life for anyone. So you're making so much sense. And I really truly appreciate your sense of awareness for this and saying, no, this is not okay. And listen, like it's hard to say, like it's hard to admit, but things are so interconnected. And if we
mm-hmm.
don't address it, how is it going to get better?
Right. And that's why I find it maybe tougher to be an environmental activist because you have to dismantle so many other things before you can really achieve this kind of, I don't want to call it a utopia because it's completely achievable, but this point where everyone is on a level playing field and everyone is dignified and everyone is respected. But the fact of the matter is, especially in the United States, racism is so deeply entrenched and our beliefs that you can even see it. I mean, especially with who's in the administration, like the White House now, you see it and it's excused and it's allowed, and people are complicit, especially comfortable, privileged white people are complicit and not speaking up about it and just kind of like, crossing arms and like, I guess you guys have to deal with that. And like, that's so messed up. And like, grinds my gears and makes me very angry, obviously, and like passionate. I don't want to be like the angry, hysterical woman because that's obviously like what people are quick to label others as. But yeah, when you're dismantling racism, you also are working your way towards a more environmentally just world. And yeah, it's fighting so many fights, like income, you're fighting racism, you're fighting like a work-life balance, even like the right to free speech and protest and be able to not worry about losing your job, to go speak out on a Friday afternoon and walk and protest with people. So yeah, it's just gets me heated and it's a lot to dissect. And I think that's why YouTube long form content is kind of my area. I can like walk through these stories. And yeah, this podcast is like kind of a venting session, but in
I
the
love it.
best way. Hopefully it, resonates with people and like it doesn't fall on deaf ears. But I do feel like the community you're creating and cultivating is gonna respond well to what you're doing and walk away with curiosity and kind of like being able to openly question other people and with love though, all with love and respect, because we
Mhm.
don't want to turn people away.
No, I
So,
think those that care the most or feel the most are often the ones that become the most angry or the most dissatisfied of what's happening. I've seen so many activists in my trajectory as an activist. I've been in the field for about 6 years, whether in tenant union work or environmentalism work or fashion union work. I've seen the most caring people step up because they just didn't agree with what was happening. A lot of them didn't really see themselves as activists. They didn't really set out as a child to be like, I am going to change the contracts of a garment factory. Like that's not what they
yeah.
set out for. Like when we look out at nature, we're not going to say, I'm going to become a climate activist. Like most of us start off saying, oh my gosh, I love flowers. I love
Mm,
nature. I find peace when I'm sitting outside. And to then become aware of all the issues, or like, oh my God, I
mm,
have a responsibility, or I feel a sense of like needing to do something, or I can't just sit here complacent. Like sometimes
right.
it's internal motivation to do something, sometimes it's external, like you get inspired by others or you join a group because you were I don't know, something touched you or something happened where you joined. Who knows how people and where people get their calling for addressing these issues, but I'm really
Hmm.
grateful for them. I think we can all enter in a lot of different ways and for a lot of different reasons. And I think that's the beauty. Again, as a collective, like we can do something and we need a
Hmm.
collective. Like we need systemic change. Like we need to fight the good fight, whether it all seems impossible. Um, so I truly respect that. Like we are all collectively learning and
Hmm.
unlearning because
Yeah.
we often have these mainstream narratives of like how life should be and
Mm,
how
hmm.
politics should work, but is it's just benefiting the wealthy white people
Right.
in power, which is really not fair whatsoever. Um, so I love that. I love that you have that intersectional perspective, and I love how you're aware about those that don't have a lot of financial freedom or resources, because that can often force them to continue living in these locations. Like personally for me,
Hmm.
I live in a frontline city. I don't have money yet, so I'll be exposed to the highways. I'll be exposed to the plants. I'll be exposed to the exploitation
Hmm.
for a while. So thank you for having that perspective. It's really needed.
Hmm.
Um, and sustainability, going back to that and the fashion industry, again, it's a pressing issue as is a lot of things.
Hmm.
But how do you address this topic specifically on your platforms? And what actions, like specific actions, do you advocate for promoting sustainability?
Yeah. Typically on my channel, it's mostly, like I said, kind of repurposing, thrifting, upcycling. I want to get more into hemming and actually learning how to sew myself, but mostly kind of encouraging people to consume less, firstly, and then also consume secondhand as their first option. So those are, and I think a direct action of like, hey, just pause your spending and free yourself kind of from these like you said, societal expectations of you should have a new dress for every event or you need a new wardrobe like when you start a new job. Like those are those exact expectations that are society's expectations. And
Mhm.
getting in touch with yourself, I think, is a really good way to kind of step outside of those and make sure that if you're purchasing something, it's like bringing you joy and it's not you in the rat race or trying to keep up with the Joneses. So there's that. And then as far as like, I think I'm just asking people to just be mindful. And sometimes that comes in the form of like a financial sort of YouTube video. I'm like dabbling in those as well, just to, because those are also intersected. A lot of times, sustainability is not accessible. And if it's not accessible, it's not sustainable. And I truly believe that that gets overlooked a lot of times. It's one thing to tell people, oh, just like save your next 3 paychecks to buy this one sustainable brand. Like, it's just not feasible for a lot of people. But it is feasible to ask people to unsubscribe from the idea that they need that new dress. So, those are the kind of actions I ask is like consume less and get in touch with why you want to be spending that money in the first place. And I think it does kind of switch on a light for a lot of people of like maybe they're hanging out with the wrong friends, or maybe they just need to delete Instagram off their phone for a month, or like maybe they need to be having open conversations with people instead of just kind of going with the flow in a way that's like draining them energetically and financially, and kind of like just tune in. I'm asking people to tune in.
I love that. I truly love that. Hmm. I do wonder though, like what is your experience as a sustainable content creator? What is something that maybe people don't realize about you making videos and content?
I mean, I do still get the urge to shop. Like now having some sort of disposable income, like I'm saving a lot of it, but at the same time, like I'm no better than anyone else. I'm still like human. And when there's a flash sale, I still like, oh, I might as well like go look. And then sometimes I buy something, and that's part of it. Like I'm not gonna berate anyone or shame them from like still purchasing and still buying. Like it is a like work in progress. Um, and yeah, I think I don't want anyone to kind of, I don't want to say idolize. Feel like that's a really strong word, but I don't want anyone to put me on a pedestal of like, oh, like she never shops, she never buys things, um, and that sort of thing. But also, like, it's hard to, I think, get people interested in sustainability. So that's why I kind of come and approach it from the lens of fashion with like sustainability hidden. That way, it sounds like switch and bait and like kind of deceitful, but it is sustainable fashion is still fashion. It's just that I'm not trying to be in your face about it and be angry and shame people. Like I do want to invite them in and invite them to reflect. And I think that's maybe my kind of strategy. And not a lot of people would, I don't even know if people would brand me as a sustainable content creator or a fashion content creator, but that's kind of the point. And I think that kind of gives me some flexibility in what I'm promoting to my audience. It's like, if you're going to shop and you're going to buy, here's at least a better alternative that's going to reduce your waste, or that's going to support a community, or donate like their proceeds during Earth Month or something like that.
Yeah, I love that. If I I want to be honest, my shopping habit that I want to work on is plushies. I don't know why. Maybe it's me trying to tap into my childhood self or something,
Mm-hmm.
my inner childhood self. But I buy so many plushies. These are just two. The rest are over there. And I'm like 28. I'm like, what am I doing? But everyone has their thing. I know
Yeah.
the boo-boos or something. I think that's what they're called, the boo-boos. The little small figurines that are everywhere on Instagram. I don't know. It's like a little
The
cute
pop
doll.
figure,
Yeah, those pop figures. It's
Popo
like
Funk,
trending.
I think.
Yeah, something like that. I don't even know. See,
Or
we're
the
like truly
there's so
not
many.
tapped in.
There's like the angel baby thing,
Yeah.
Sunny Angel. They're like naked, except they're wearing
No,
hats.
it's a good thing that we don't know because everyone is buying them and they're really hard to get because they're so on trend right now. It's just I don't remember what they're called. I think it's called a boo-boos, but everyone has these
Mhm,
little things. Not to judge them, it's just everyone has their little quirk, everyone's buying little
mhm,
things, and I don't know, it is normal to be tempted. I mean, we're exposed to so many different things.
mhm.
It's just the self-restraint is like really needed. The thinking
I,
of like, do I need this?
yeah, and I did make a video about that, like I think a year ago now, being like, why do we love novelty in fashion? And it has a lot to do with the literal way our brain is wired And since I studied marketing for a couple of years, like I thought that's what I was gonna do is like sell people shit. I don't know if I can curse, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay.
Go, 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 go.
I thought I was gonna sell people things like that, and woke up and I was like, oh my God, no. But marketers literally tap into the idea of novelty, the sense of urgency, the feast or famine kind of mentality. It's really like messed up how they have our psychology nailed down so much that they know that they can get us to buy things that we don't need. And we're not looking at it from a lens of like, I need this thing, I'm going to buy it, like at the grocery store. It's when you're scrolling, when your email gets filled with sales, or when you're just perusing a website and then that other ad pops up for something you were just looking for. Like, it's scary. And it's not necessarily like I have to willpower my way through this, but it's like I have to like blinders on, only go online like when I need to research something, or like I'm looking for a YouTube video or something. So it's a system designed to like entrench us in consumerism. So,
Mhm.
don't be so hard on yourself or anyone else. Like it's set up for failure. So,
Oh my gosh. It's so hard. One of the things that I learned growing up is having a list, like writing exactly the things that you need, or even take your phone and use a note
mhm.
app and put the whole list of things that you need and stick by it. That's been the
Yes.
challenge I've been having recently. And yeah, my mom and my dad used to do it all the time, not necessarily because they wanted to, but because they
Mhm.
didn't have the money to go outside of that budget. So they were forced to be like mindful consumers or like
Mhm.
sustainable consumers because money is very tight when you're working warehouse jobs, which were what my parents worked. And if they spent $10 or $20 extra, are we going to pay the electric bill this month? No.
Yeah.
So
No, it was
I
the
always,
same way growing up. My dad and I, we would go grocery shopping together, and he'd make a list and he'd try to put something in the cart. I was like, Dad, is that on the list? And he's like, no, I would take it out. So I totally feel you on that.
yeah. I think that's why I'm sometimes grateful for those memories of hardship because it made me more aware of like consumerism and it maybe has led to my journey in sustainable fashion some way. But good on you as a kid to be like, Dad, what are you doing?
Yeah, like I see you trying to sneak that like fruity pebbles in the cart, like get that out. But no,
Uh,
exactly. I think maybe a lot of people, it's funny because like I really relate to you in the sense that like my love for nature was always just that, and the sense and like need to protect it from all these awful things happening. But then also hardship along the way of like you still do that because you love it, even when it's not easy. It's not something like we just opt out of because it's not convenient that day. Like we're like for the earth, ride or die, earth or nothing.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
I feel that.
no, I love that. Yeah. But I was watching some of your videos and it seems like you have a love for beauty, a love for the things that are like action based as well, like Project Pan. You've been doing a couple videos on those. Could you expand of what those videos are? I didn't know what that was actually until I watched your videos. That's how I stumbled onto your video because I
Oh,
love
no way.
beauty. Yeah, I love mindful consumption in that way, and I'm getting into clean beauty. So could you explain what
Mm-hmm.
that concept is and like what your videos consist of in your journey?
Yeah, for sure. So with the clean beauty thing, I actually just want to use up all my makeup and only have clean beauty. And I can't remember how I found Project Pan. I feel like I've been on YouTube for when I tell you ages, like since I was 12 years old. So very long time, like old YouTube essentially. And that was kind of always a thing was Project Pan, people using their makeup. And then I kind of got into it myself when I wanted to make the switch to clean beauty and I looked at my makeup collection. It's not like huge, like, some people get PR and they have drawers and drawers and drawers just filled of stuff. I'm not like that, but I had more than I could possibly put on my face. I had like 7 blushes and like 7 eyeshadow palettes and like 3 mascaras. And I'm like, am I actually using this? No, but I need to. I'm not just going to throw it away. Like, I'm actually still using a mascara that's 2 years old, and everyone in my comments is telling me to throw it away. Like, it's not worth your health. But I, in my soul, am like pained to just throw it out because it still works. Like, why would I? Maybe I should, but yes. So I came across Project Pan as like a way to hold myself accountable, but also document the progress on YouTube. And those videos do get a lot of traction. And I'm glad you found me through that. Like, that's really awesome to hear. And it's just like short, bite-sized, punchy little videos to show you guys, like, okay, this is what I'm going to use. And along the, like, throughout the year, kind of show you how far I am with that progress. And it's really energizing using stuff up and delayed gratification. I practice that, and Project Pan is a way to like share that and like remind everyone like we don't need instant dopamine hits. Like, it is good for your soul and good for your brain to like work towards something, even if it is as trivial as like working your way through an eyeshadow palette. But yeah, that's been a good way to share mindful consumption again in like a palatable way for people to kind of get on board with, and like, oh, maybe I could do that. Like, I have my friend Haley. She'll send me like pictures of like, oh, like I use this up. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, I love that. No, no, yeah, your videos are really are educational, and like I follow along your journey and try to replicate some things. I'm literally holding a chapstick. That's how attached I am to like makeup. But no,
Yeah,
I love your videos.
I have this here. I'm like, I hopefully don't need to apply it, but it's like SPF for lips. Who knew that was a thing?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think those are the things that I look forward to, just like using and re-envisioning what I have in my hands. Um, I like to see things as like practical and then also like visionary. That's how I
Mm,
work. And I have a sense that you do that as well. Like you want to use what you have. You're responsible in a lot of different ways. But I'm also curious, like where do you see things going? Like your vision for a sustainable future, whether that's for
mm.
fashion or for environmentalism. Like what do you hope to see going forward in the world?
First and foremost, we need to stop being so dependent on fossil fuels. In my mind, that means like a fossil fuel free future. Wow, say that 5 times fast. And just, being on clean energy, solar panels, this sun is free, wind is free, rivers and oceans flowing is free. Obviously, like I say they as like, the powers that be, like, don't want
Hmm.
us to shift from fossil fuels, because then we don't have the oil byproduct like petroleum products, polyester, et cetera, that are like flooding our marketplaces. And if we don't have that, then how are they making their big bucks? How are they lining their pockets? So that's number one for me. Number two is kind of like unplugging and reconnecting with communities. I feel like, especially since COVID, a lot of our community has been fractured. It's hard for people to make eye contact and strike up a conversation, or just even say like hello to neighbors, because we've been inside, like literally inside. And that, I don't think that has to do so much with COVID as it does just like, I think community wise, if we were literally looking after our neighbors and our gardens and parks, like we would feel much more connected to the earth and want to continue to take care of it. And then, yeah, being mindful of like what we consume. And I, for myself and like my channel and just the future in general, I want to create more than I consume, whether that's like content or even with my clothing. I really want to learn how to mend, and then maybe pattern make, and then sew my own garments, and like upcycle. So that's kind of, I think, most of humanity, if we're like creating, like we have a garden rather than we're constantly shopping at the supermarket, we're creating more than we're consuming. And I think maybe that's the equilibrium that needs to shift back to creation. And that's, in my mind, what makes us humans, is we have this capacity to create such beautiful things. But right now we're just consuming the literal like dog food that's being fed to us, and falls apart in like 3 to 4 uses. And we're wondering why we have to constantly keep purchasing these things. And it's just a really vicious cycle. And yeah, I think that kind of applies to fashion as well. Like, clean energy, we're creating really great things mindfully and not actual crap.
Yeah, I love the metaphor of like we need to stop eating the dog food that the industry is giving us. Because you're right, fast fashion only lasts so long, and we do need more community versus consumption. There's this term called third spaces, which is something that is essentially needed. Third spaces are a place beyond your home and beyond your work, where
Mm.
you can just come together with people, maybe around a project or just to spend time with each other. And that can really tackle loneliness. But what I have found is that I gravitate towards shopping or going to a mall to wander around to waste some hours to not be in my house. Or if I'm not at work, I'm like, what can I do? And I just tend to go on my phone and online shop because it keeps me
Hmm.
entertained. Or I scroll on TikTok um, for hours. I was looking at my screen usage and I spend 2 hours on TikTok every day, and I didn't realize, but when there is no place for you to find community, to find like-minded people, you can either, go to the mall or like go on your phone, and it just becomes a habit. It's not a good
Yeah.
one. For me, it's not good because I'm just like increasingly in my room. I'm not
Yeah.
really building the world I want. But it
Mm.
seems like the system is like set up to make us isolated or lonely or just shop to fill a void of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to hear you talk about that more. Like, I don't know if you have a video out about that already or coming up on that, but I think, yeah, I'd love to hear you speak about that more.
Yeah, I think it's needed, especially because in fashion, third spaces can be like clothing swaps. That
Hmm.
can be a free way people can get clothing and be in community. I know the Radical Clothing Swap in LA does that a lot. They team up with restaurants or different locations and they just bring clothing and invite people to bring their own clothing and then they swap and they've made really great connections. They were recently part of LA's first Climate Week, so very intersectional. And it seemed like they were having a lot of fun. So those are the things that we can really move forward together with. But in terms of like your perspective, what is something you would personally want the fashion industry to change? Like, if they were listening, if major
Hmm.
brands were listening, what would you say to them to change?
I would say people over profit. That's something that's in the environmental sphere when it comes to oil and like really anything, but truly like people over profit. I think it's so easy to pay someone pennies on the dollar to sew thousands of garments a week and just not even think of them as a person. Um, and I think we as consumers do that as well. Like we don't see those conditions, we don't see those people, we don't know those people. Some people think that like robots make garments, and that's just not the case. Like that, if it was, then it wouldn't really be such an issue. But yeah, people over profit and treat your workers well and pay them well. Make sure they're living a good wage, that they have breaks, that they are paid overtime. It's really a women's rights issue as well, and like a human rights issue in the fashion industry. But I really don't think that's talked about enough. Like you can have a brand that's clean energy, but if they're using like practically like slave labor, then it's how good of a brand is it really? And you don't really have a lot of insight into that. There's not a lot of coverage in that kind of part of the supply chain.
And then just to wrap up the podcast, we are closing towards the end, Sally. But I'm curious, where do you see yourself with your platform in a couple of years? Like, what are you currently manifesting, and what would you want to
Mm.
do with your platform going forward?
I mean, of course, I'd love for my platform to grow and kind of attract more of a community and then have community events set up in my space. Oh, do you mind if I let her out?
Go for it, go for it.
Shoot. All right. Thank you.
No worries.
Take three. um, yeah, so my platform in the future, I'd love to continue creating the community and the audience that I've built and maybe eventually host community events. I'm not too far from New York City, so I think that would be a great hub. I do also want to write a book. Now, I'm not sure what kind of form that's going to take, fiction or nonfiction, but I've always been a storyteller, and I do think that's a natural path for me. And then being able to share that with the world and hopefully get people thinking again. Critical thinking is a lost art in some. So that's kind of where I see myself like manifesting and calling in for my energy and my future.
That's beautiful. Well, if you do come out with a book soon, let me know. I will buy it. I will pre-order. I love to support. Oh my gosh, this has been such a lovely conversation. There's been a lot of learning, a lot of good nuance, and I think it's just a matter of continuing to do what we, see as an issue and moving forward with action. That's super important. So I will continue to watch your YouTube videos. I know you uploaded one on Sunday today. Do you upload every Sunday?
Every Sunday. Sustainability Sunday is what I call it in my head, but now you know too.
Oh, I love that. I also upload on Sundays, so that's super cool. I feel like I'm gonna be doing it with you. Sustainability Sunday.
Yes,
Oh
absolutely. It just makes sense. It's like a chill day. We're recharging and, we want to care about the earth while we do that. So,
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I personally learned a lot. For the people that are listening, how can they support you and your mission right now?
yeah, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. I also sometimes sell on Depop if that's like a financial way to support me. I don't really like get any money or anything from like YouTube or Instagram, but I just think like sharing my videos with other people and just having conversation around it. It's not really supporting me, it's supporting the environment and the home that we all share. And that's my mission. So yeah, just keep talking about it. Keep talking about how the earth is beautiful and gorgeous, and we have a mission and a duty to steward the land.
Well, thank you so much. It's been lovely, and thank you so
Thank
much for what
you.
you're doing.
Yeah, of
Take
course. Thank you
care.
so much for having me. Bye.
Bye.